This is Hollywood lighting, and while it's beautiful, it's intimidating to recreate. Especially when it takes all these lights just to make it look like it's sunny inside. So in this video, I wanted to prove the Hollywood system wrong, to see if you could shoot a short film with several different looks as a solo filmmaker. So good. I want to just keep shooting in here.
No.
Oh, it looks so good though. I want to keep shooting in here.
I'm done.
I want to keep shooting in here.
I'm gonna kill you.
I love you.
Divorce.
All right. Okay, so this is Amran's little light. We're doing so much work with it, so let's talk about it. The coolest thing about this light is it is the size of a laptop, so it can fit into any sort of laptop sleeve that you have for your computer, mostly if it's like a 16-inch. The other thing is that Amran has designed this. So the light goes from looking like this to looking like this. But once it's set up, this panel light is really impressive. It's 120 watts RGB and is amazing on such a small footprint setup. We'll add this diffusion in. Oh, that feels nice. And this is our first setup. Jackie and I have spent about a year working on this concept, Echoes. And after going to the drawing board a million times, the concept was built from a visual and cool idea, but not really a full, fleshed out story. But I can't let this idea go to rest just yet. We wanted to go back to camera and see if there's one final stride we could take with this story. The concept follows a depressed woman who's mourning the loss of a loved one and is looking to escape through a new wave therapy. Like Severance meets this indie film called Beyond the Black Rainbow. Fortunately, there's actually this amazing little light grid here that we can test the lighting out. Well, I don't know what's going on with Jackie.
I'm processing.
We rented out this hall for about 2 hours for $100 because I wanted to try and recreate like a Severance style short film, which we'll talk more about in a future video, but this was the look I was going for. So what I did was I set up the pano light, arced it over top. I find this arcing over top, kind of more concentrated light, works well within spaces to create sort of this dramatic horror vibe. So I'm using their kind of magnetic. Let's see how this works. It's actually kind of scary. It just like clips in magnetically. Yeah, that's so...
The whole light just holds up.
It's just like clipped in like that. This light is really bright, so what that's doing is then I can kind of turn the exposure down, which then will make these lights less bright. This is doing a lot of work for me. And so with this setup, I had it over top of Jackie. I put the grid on and it looked a little too harsh. So when I removed it, it made it a lot more soft, which was exactly what I was going for this interior look. Because the audience is bringing in all of the entire scene, they're not focusing on the dramatic cinematics of the close-ups, so you can kind of get away with more natural light for your wide, and then for your mediums and close-ups, that's when you bring in your movie lights. But to compare what a movie light looks like with instead of the regular space, this is it with the pano light kind of off to the side, and here is it just with the natural light. Now with the space, we were able to have a couple little controls, but it wasn't the best. Now if I was working with the DP, they probably would have taken out all of the lights on the ceiling and replaced it with some sort of tube lights. But to be honest, I was really surprised with how well this looked. Instead of fighting against the light within the space, I worked with it. I brought up the brightness of the panel light to be brighter than the interior lights and then brought down my exposure. So therefore I created more contrast separation between the foreground and background. It made my character pop out more. Now if I wanted her to feel more natural within the space, I would then bring down the brightness of the pano light and then make it more similar to all the other lights within the space. And this is how you could create more of a naturalistic vibe. But again, I was going for the dramatic look for this. Three, two, one. Now we did a couple cool camera techniques, the Severance effect, all of that. I'll talk about that in another video, but I was really happy with how the cinematography turned out within this one space within a few hours.
The color lights look sick.
Now the next bit was I wanted to create this like red room effect, something like what I've seen in Severance season finale. Yeah, I need to talk to someone about this. The cinematography of that was incredible, and I really liked how the red lights within that sort of workspace looked. So I just put the panel light to red, it reflected off all of these walls, and then the coolest thing was these sort of trim lights that are on the back wall contrasted the red and created a bit of separation in the lighting, which looked amazing. Now this is where this sort of hybrid setup works. If you've noticed, I haven't shot anything on a tripod, and this is so that I can find frames in the moment. If I'm working with the DP or I'm working with a bigger crew, chances are we've location scouted, shot listed, and figure out the shots in beforehand, and that's where stuff like dollies and tripods and all that stuff works really well. But when you're on the fly finding the shots in the moment, I really find that my gimbal works kind of better than handheld and tripod put together because it gives the flexibility of handheld but the steadiness of what a dolly or tripod is going for, which is the cinematography that I love. Which leads me to the next setup that we did, which is going inside and going, instead of for that cool overhead clinical vibe, for more of like a sunrise morning setup.
Typically you'd have like a high powered light bursting through a window, but this is the second story of a house. So instead we just have got the Pano 60 watt just sitting here.
Which was insanely bright. I don't even think I had it at full blast. Typically, I'm actually just using these lights at around 50%. So if you're looking at getting a 120 or a 60 watt, which is about half this power, I'm always actually going for the less bright setting because I don't need it to be as bright as what it can provide. Then what we did was we had the actual bigger panel light, the 120 off to the side, creating some more fill.
And then I just grabbed the other light, I put on the grid so that it created a bit more of a harsh look on it, arced it up using the softbox on top, and because of the size of the panel light, we're able to really tuck it up into a corner. I think this is where these lights stand out and really stand strong. For this, I was able to have it fully out, and what it did was it created this nice highlight across the sheets. It gave Jackie a little bit more spill on the left side of her face when we did the head-on shot, and I really think just gave it more of a wrapped around look. We're doing this at 5 p.m. and I'll show you what this looks like with the lights on and off. So this is sort of just like me sitting here normal with the light kind of emulating the sun. That's the fill light turned off, and it's not as noticeable. But that was the 60 watt. The small little 60 watt was doing all of that damage, and look, now it's like normal.
Clearly 5 p.m.
It's clearly 5 p.m.
Now that leads me into this sort of arcing light setup. You've seen it now twice within what we've shot, and I really like this. One, natural light to kind of emulate the sun is never directly in someone's face unless it's sunset, and doesn't really look that flattering, and it's difficult for your actors to operate in. So the look that emulates the sun and interior light the best is when the light is overhead and almost creating, I think they call it the Rembrandt effect, where it creates like a butterfly light under someone's nose. But more importantly, you're just trying to get something that lights the eyes, creates some contrast within the face, and looks semi-natural, but fills the space as good as you can. And that's why this overhead arc works, but more importantly, I like it because it stays out of my shots. Once it's up and out of the way, I'm really getting a lot more coverage. As much as I love cinematic lighting, I love being able to get the camera in and around the actor and get more shots in a shorter period of time. So this is really why this lighting setup works well.
And because it's RGB, maybe we even try to do moonlight. I don't know. I've heard how hard moonlight is to recreate. HSI, our favorite, and we're gonna change the hue to blue.
And then finally, I was like, Matt, let's really try something funky with this. So what we did was I wanted to create a moonlight effect because I thought moonlight is probably one of the more complicated setups. So I swapped it into HSI mode, put the light up against the wall, splashed it around the corner, and was able to create this like nice moonlit ambience. Room tone darkness. It's not pure dark, but it's dark enough so you can see a little bit of detail. I I'm also used to working with lights from probably 5-6 years ago that were big and cumbersome and kind of took up a lot of space whenever you put them on a stand. But this, the light is so thin that I can put it right up to my ceiling, keep it right out of my shot, and cover a great surface area of light with a variability of brightness. All right, I want to just go over some of the shots that we captured and kind of talk about what I would change and why this doesn't or does beat Hollywood. So the interior lodge stuff with Jackie at the computer, I think there could have been a little bit more light on her face. By the last setup that we did, I was getting enough bounce and softness, but since I was moving the light around a lot, I wasn't locking in on the look. If you're working with a DP or gaffer or team, they're going to make sure you get that consistent look every single shot. For the sake of the story, no one's really going to be bothered by this when they watch the whole film. The sunrise stuff I was very impressed with, and the fact that we were able to get that sun coming in through the window without having a stand outside, I don't know what I would have done differently with this, so I was very impressed with this look. The other one with the moonlight, I mean, it looks very harsh coming in through the window, but I'm curious if this same sort of moonlight setup would work the same way we did the sun through the window. If we were to have just changed that orange light into something more blue, or we played with a color grade, if that could resemble moonlight as well. And then the other setup was the red room. Since it's like fun texture lighting, I was very happy with how that looked as well. This isn't to prove that Hollywood is replaceable or these big setups are pointless. It's really to share that as an indie filmmaker who's doing stuff on your own, if you have one light, an actor, and a camera, you can tell a story that looks 70% there. I'm going to say this isn't 100%, nowhere close to 100%, but it's definitely 100%, 70%. And if you're curious why I'm actually even doing any of this stuff, I want to make a feature film at the end of the year that is on a small footprint that kind of goes against the big, massive setups. While there probably will be some cool things that we do within it, I want to see, can we reverse engineer a film, treat it like being shot like a documentary, but with a script behind it and very small footprint setups. So if you want to join me on that journey, the goal is to get it to Netflix by the end of the year. So follow along that journey and we'll see what we can do. Part of that. But hopefully you liked the stuff that we made. And if you want to see the full version that we shot, you can see that in another video on the channel. Goodbye.